You're listening to In Pursuit of Community with Elevate Branson. This episode is brought to you by Neighbors Hub. Great food for a great cause. Enjoy made-to-order personal pizzas and fresh chopped salads every Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., located at 310 Gretna Road, Branson, Missouri. Dine in for excellent food and know that you're supporting an excellent cause. All proceeds generated through Neighbors Hub directly support Elevate Branson programs and services.
You're listening to In Pursuit of Community with Elevate Branson. I'm the CEO and co-founder, Brian Stallings, and you are listening to part 2 of the Elevate Branson story. Amy, I remember when we first started serving those meals and people started hearing about it and they wanted to come along and they wanted to support us in that financially. Really, we had no intention of starting a nonprofit organization or a ministry. Right. We were just looking for a way to serve and connect with people and build relationships, something that we were really missing from church. Right. We wanted to do this with our neighbors, especially after that first Thanksgiving dinner. And I don't remember who it was. They kind of messed it all up because they wrote us a check. You remember that? They wrote us a check for like $100 to help pay for the meals, and they said they wanted a receipt. I don't know how to give you a receipt. Right. I mean, because if you give me $100, I got to pay income tax on that, you know? Right. And so he said, what do we make the check out to, you know, who or what the organization is? And we have been reading Shane's book, and Shane has a story in there where he goes in front of a judge and he has a T-shirt on that says Jesus was homeless, and the judge, just kind of stared at him and made a couple comments and then dropped the charges against Shane. And we just started thinking about that and wanted to instill in the neighbors that we were serving that they were valued, that oftentimes we felt like they were full of guilt and shame, and sometimes because they felt like where they lived or they didn't have financial means. And so we just pulled it out of the air and said, hey, Jesus was homeless because, you know, even Jesus was homeless, the King of Kings. So there's nothing to be ashamed about. And so this guy wrote us a check and we had to form a nonprofit. And part of that process is really trying to figure out what your values are, why you're doing this. And we had a friend of ours that came and spent some time with us and really pulled some of that out of us.
Right, and that did this professionally.
Yeah, and I just remember hitting on these really 6 strong core values that really made up the why we were doing this. And I think that was important, was the why we wanted to do this. It wasn't pats on the back. And again, we were working full-time jobs, and it was just really to build relationships, to serve. And some of these things that we learned was that a lot of the folks in the motels at the time, they were unseen in Branson, and they were forgotten. They had no voice.
Right.
And
people didn't even know they were there.
Yeah, they didn't know.
They still don't.
Yeah, exactly. And so trying to advocate for them, trying to let our community know that they existed. I remember, we accidentally, I guess, would say that we became their voice for them, you know, to create awareness. And so through that process and through people coming alongside us and volunteering with us and seeing what God was doing in their lives, that value really became something that we treasured. And so our core value was we serve the poor, the forgotten, and those who have no voice, because we believe that by serving others, we can experience God's love in a life-transforming way.
Right.
I mean, we saw so much of that happen, and we wanted to be known as people that move toward those that other people move away from.
Right. And we started to see miracles happen in people's lives. Like, I knew God does miracles. I never doubted that. I didn't get to see them very often, but now we were seeing miracles like on a weekly basis of life change with people and people wanting to better themselves and wanting to kind of know how to do that. And that was exciting.
It was.
It still is.
And you know, oftentimes our neighbors would ask us why we were there bringing those meals. And it was an opportunity for us to share what Jesus had done in our lives and invite them to be a part of it. And so I think that was really critical for us in the beginning too, was inviting them to be on the journey with us, that we weren't just giving them or serving them,
Right.
that they were a part of it as well. And so part of that core value was inviting them into community with us to join
Right.
us. That was really transformational, I think, for us. One of the other things that I learned about was that people don't really care what Jesus will do for them. They want to know what Jesus has done for you before they lean into that. And so it was really important for us to be authentic and transparent and non-judgmental. I mean, our neighbors are sharp, and they know if you come at it with a Christian agenda to convert them or have some sort of judgmental way about you, they're gonna smell that like blood in the water to a shark. And so that became a really strong core value for us, was that we wanted to inspire our volunteers that served with us to be authentic, to be transparent, to not be judgmental towards our neighbors.
And the more authentic and genuine we were, the more authentic and genuine those we were serving started to become. They started to feel safe, that they could be themselves around us, and we weren't going to judge them or be like, oh, we don't want to be around you. They started to feel that, and wow, that was just, it was great.
Yeah, it really broke down that us versus them,
Right.
And we were all one. And, through that, we just believed that by being authentic, it leads to hope and healing for others, and we got to see that. And so part of Thursday night meal delivery was really just striving to listen intently and share our struggles with one another, like walk alongside one another. It's very biblical. It says, when two or more are there together, you have a support system versus being alone. And so that didn't mean that you ignored telling people the truth, right? You just did it in love. Also gave you the permission to be truthful with people when you'd earned that.
Right.
Authentic.
You can't just walk in and talk to somebody you don't know and start giving them advice. They're like, who are you again? Yeah. So we felt it was important to just let it happen in God's time and just pour into people. And that was just what ended up happening as a result.
It's ironic that this podcast is called In Pursuit of Community, because one of our core values is that we create an amazing sense of community. And we had a gathering today, and you heard that from volunteers about how it feels like family here, how this feels like community. And we heard that over and over again. And so that really was a core value. We wanted to create an amazing sense of community because that's what we longed for.
Right, and to find a sense of purpose and to be on this journey with other people, not to do it on our own, but to do it together as a team. That's been very life-changing for me.
Yeah, and it goes back to being non-judgmental, right? Accepting people for where they are at in life. Doesn't mean we have to accept that they stay there, but we have to meet them where they're at. And if we can do life together and really truly believe that everyone belongs, we can create environments where people are treated with dignity and feel safe and accepted and valued. And that was one of our core values.
And we want that too. We want to be
we want
accepted,
it as individuals all the time.
And not judged. So why wouldn't we want to do that with other people?
Yeah, and then another core value that we discovered was that we move people to embrace the journey of life change, because life is always changing. And if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards. And so we also believe, though, that life change doesn't happen overnight, because we'd get some volunteers that would come in and they'd be like, why isn't this person doing that, tomorrow? Why aren't they clean and shaven and going to church?
Yeah, they had high expectations and they wanted it now.
Yeah, and I think for us, that was something we also had to learn, especially for me being a fixer. We had to learn that along the way, that
Be patient.
we may never see the result of change. Like, we are called to plant the seed, but we may never see whatever happens to that seed. But I remember getting a phone call left on our voicemail of a girl who had received a meal on Thursday night. And it was about 3 years later, and she was calling back to tell us that put her on a path to come into faith.
Hi, my name is Kara, and I lived in Branson, Missouri a year ago. Actually, about 3 years ago, I was living in Shady Oaks Hotel, and I was addicted to meth and being abused by my boyfriend and just hurt and broken and just busted down completely. And I remember one night someone knocking on the door of the hotel room I was staying in and giving me a meal from Jesus is Homeless. And I still remember that night to this day. I just wanted to thank you guys. Your ministry is wonderful. I'm saved now, and I've been clean for over a year. And I still remember that day, and that was a huge seed planted in my life. So I know what you guys are doing is wonderful, and the seeds you're planting in people's lives, they are making a difference. And I just want to testify to that. Thank you for all that you do. God bless. Bye.
It really made me aware of how small that seed is, but how big it can grow. We help people find their purpose, though. Oftentimes, it's not just our neighbors, it's our volunteers. They're looking, everyone, all of us are looking for purpose. And so we believe everyone can discover their God-inspired purpose through opportunities to serve, connect with others, but also experience Jesus at their own pace. Some people, we've had some come that want to hit our neighbors over the head with the Bible because they're further along in their faith journey than maybe our neighbors are. But we believe in letting people experience Jesus at their own pace. Our mission then has been to elevate our community by empowering our neighbors to reach their full potential. And that really, what that's saying is empowering them to move forward so that they reach their full potential on their own. Because if we did it all for them, they would never reach their full potential. Their full potential is way more than maybe your or I potential is.
Right. We had a friend today who made a comment that will probably stick with me, and he said, we want to empower, not enable, and that there's a difference between the two. And he was clearly right, a big difference.
Yeah. And then the vision is really for every individual to know hope, dignity, and purpose through the love of Jesus. So ultimately, we've always felt we don't have to tell them about Jesus if we're showing them Jesus. And that is just to be loving and acceptable.
And then they start to ask questions.
Everybody.
They want to know more.
One of the other key books that was instrumental in this was Toxic Charity, Bob Lupton's book. And we have really applied a lot of the foundations of what he wrote about in 2010 to what we currently do now. And his philosophy was that we disempower people when we do for them what they have the ability to do for themselves. And we have seen that so often. When you give once, you get excitement and appreciation, but when you give twice, you start to create anticipation, and when you give a third time, you start creating expectation. And we see that with our own kids, if you think about that, and then you give a fourth time and it becomes entitlement. Like there's this, you need to give to me. And then you give 5 times, then you create this dependency. And there's no freedom in dependency. And we wanted to create freedom. And so we really stepped back after reading that book and analyzed the way we were doing things and started changing those processes. And that was kind of a difficult shift. And you remember just getting out of that mindset, wasn't it?
Right. Well, it was harder to do that, to hold people accountable and to say, hey, we want to help you, but we don't want to just give you stuff. Here, you can help us in this way and earn what we call reward points, and then you can earn some of the items that you need. It could be some food, it could be clothing in our thrift store, but let's create opportunity for our neighbors to be able to come and earn the things that they need. And it has just been so life-changing for so many people, because oftentimes people come in our doors and they just expect that we're just going to give them things. And when we give them an opportunity to actually work for those items, at first they're a little skeptical about it, but by the time they're done, they are holding their head high, their shoulders back, and you can see that they have a sense that I have done something and I've actually earned this. And so I just love that we get to do that with our neighbors.
Today at our gathering, we had a lady that was talking to Jack. And you guys don't know Jack, but he's a big supporter of ours, and we love having Jack around. But she was telling him that she had asked him for $250 when she was in junior high or something like that to be in a pageant. And he said, so there's 5 of you that need to raise this money. And she said, yes. And he said, well, I tell you what, I'm going to give you 50 because I want you to go work for the rest of it. And now she's, mid 50-year-old lady, and she remembered that being instilled in her back then. And so just the value of keeping people's individuals' dignity intact.
And to help them to understand that, the why behind it.
Another example of that is when we had a lady come in with her head down, and you could tell she was ashamed to ask, but she was looking for some black pants for her husband who had a job interview the next day, knowing that we had a thrift store. And you had told her, no, we don't give those things out, but today we're packing meals, and you can volunteer to pack those meals and earn those black pants. And what'd she do?
She did. She came and she prepared meals with us on a Thursday morning, and she got to meet people while she was doing it. She laughed. She had fun. And then afterwards, she earned the reward points to go in the thrift store and get the black pants that she needed for her husband to work in. And she just loved the whole concept of it. She just felt, you could tell she felt proud that she was able to do something like that and not just have us just give something to her.
Yeah, I remember after she got that, you telling me her shoulders were back, her head was up, and she was excited to come back and do it again to earn something else in the thrift store. And so all of our programs and services here at Elevate are really designed to do that. We're excited to share more of those programs with you in future podcasts. Our Elevate community is a tiny house development that we'll be talking about. We have an Elevate Connections program that really is our first point of contact to help point people in the right direction for resources, whether it's to our program or someone we've partnered with. Elevate Entrepreneurs is a new program that we've launched that helps people create a side business or a side hustle to earn extra income. And then I remember when we started Elevate Work, which is actually an empowerment program to teach people the value and dignity of work, that even though they were a good employee, they sometimes needed help with their health issues. And so we created an Elevate Health program. And then people have kids, and we needed some way to take care of their kiddos. And so we created Elevate Kids. And of course, Elevate Outreach is where we started with the sack lunch meals. And then a new program that we'll be bringing is Elevate Rides with transportation. And so lots of learnings and things that we've learned about that we're going to talk along with you in this podcast series. So more exciting stuff to come.
And if there's one thing that we can leave you with today, it's that you can make a difference. It's not just Brian and Amy. It's not just our staff. It's you. You can make a difference. You can get in contact with us, and we can figure out where your interests lay and where your area of giftedness is, because everybody has that. Everybody has some kind of giftedness that they can use to help another person, even if it's just to talk to somebody. That's huge. But you can make a difference in our community. You can definitely change lives by just getting outside your comfort zone as well.
You remember the line in Shane Claiborne's book that what he said to do?
You have to give me more than that.
Well, I think it was, a lot of times I think we get stuck. Like, what do we go do? How do we serve? How do we get involved? What is it? And his line was, just do something.
Just do something.
And we started with just doing something with some sack meals. And it's gotten way out of hand since then. But it sure has been a fun ride. Well, thank you for being my first and best guest and most beautiful guest on this podcast. And our next one will be focusing on how do we start addressing these issues, especially when we have an upper class, middle class, lower class. And so more to come. Keep listening to the Elevate Branson in Pursuit of Community podcast.